When Roman warriors won a battle, the world remembers the glory. Golden armor. Marching legions. Crowds screaming victory. But history almost never asks a darker question. What happened to the women left behind after the city fell? Because for them, the battle did not end. For them, victory meant ownership. Tonight, we uncover what Roman warriors were legally allowed to do to captured women and why, even by ancient standards, it was horrifying. Rome did not fight wars to negotiate. Rome fought wars to erase resistance. Under Roman law, once a city was conquered, its people lost all legal protection. This included women, children, and the elderly. They were no longer citizens. No longer people in the legal sense. They became spoils of war. This was not chaos. This was not accidental cruelty. It was written into Roman military and civil law. A Roman soldier believed victory granted him rights not just over land, but over human lives. When Roman legions breached a city, violence followed a pattern. Men who resisted were usually killed immediately. Women were separated. Not to protect them, but to preserve their value. Roman officers assessed captives like merchants inspect goods. Age. Physical condition. Social status. Young women were prioritized. Noble women were reserved for officers or political purposes. Older women were often sold cheaply or sent to hard labor. From this moment on, a woman's past no longer mattered. Her name disappeared. Her family disappeared. Her identity disappeared. Roman records listed captured women alongside livestock, weapons, precious metals. They were counted, priced, assigned. A woman might be given as a reward to a soldier, sold at auction, reserved for public display. Rome did not hide this. It normalized it. To Roman society, this was the natural order of empire. Some captured women faced a fate worse than enslavement. They were marched through Rome itself. During a triumph parade, victorious generals displayed the conquered. Chained kings. Defeated warriors. Captured women. This was public humiliation by design. Rome wanted its citizens to see absolute domination. For noble women, this exposure destroyed honor forever. Many ancient sources suggest some women chose death over survival, but Roman historians barely noticed. After the parade, captives vanished into slavery or execution. The crowd went home satisfied. Captured women were sold into different forms of slavery. 1. Domestic slavery. Women sent to Roman households performed endless labor. Obedience under threat. Total submission. They could be punished, sold, or discarded at any moment. 2. Agricultural slavery. Others were sent to farms. Brutal physical labor. Little food. Almost no medical care. Life expectancy was short. 3. State or military assignment. Some women were assigned to state-controlled environments tied to the army. They existed entirely outside normal civilian protection. Roman law allowed it. Rome did not just conquer bodies. It conquered culture. Captured women were often renamed, forced to learn Latin, forbidden from practicing native customs. Their children belonged to Rome. Entire cultures vanished silently through forced assimilation. This was one of Rome's most effective weapons. Some Roman officers took captive women as wives or concubines. These were not romantic unions. They were political statements, symbols of conquest, proof of dominance. The woman had no legal protection. She could be discarded, sold, or abandoned without consequence. Rome called this civilization. The woman lived it as imprisonment. The greatest horror was not physical violence. It was psychological annihilation. Captured women lived knowing their past meant nothing. Their future was controlled. Their bodies were not their own. Ancient writers occasionally mentioned suicides, but not with sympathy. Rome recorded numbers, not names. Silence became policy. Roman history was written by Roman men. The suffering of women was considered normal, legal, unimportant. So it vanished from official narratives. Only fragments remain. Foreign accounts, archaeological evidence, quiet references buried in texts. Together, they reveal a system of cruelty hidden behind law and order. Rome was not chaotic. Rome was organized. This matters because what happened to captured women was not uncontrolled violence, it was systematic, legal, and accepted. That is what makes it horrifying. When we admire Roman roads, architecture, and military genius, we must ask: who paid the price? Behind every victory arch, behind every conquered province, were women whose lives were erased so Rome could call itself eternally. Empires rise by conquest. Victors celebrate history. But the conquered live in silence. And the silence of Rome's captured women is one of the darkest chapters empire ever tried to forget. History remembers the warriors. But the true cost of victory was paid by those who were never allowed to speak. When a Roman victory ended, a new tragedy began quietly. Children born to captured women entered the world with no past and no protection. Under Roman law, the child followed the legal status of the mother. If the mother was enslaved, the child was enslaved. If the father was Roman, the child still belonged to the household, not the mother. These children were not seen as human stories. They were assets. Some were raised to serve Roman families. Others were sold young. Many disappeared from records entirely. Rome erased the future before it began. Captured women were allowed to give birth, but they were not allowed to be mothers. Roman owners controlled when children were taken, where they were raised, whether they lived. Infant separation was common. A crying child was considered inefficient. A grieving mother was considered disobedient. Rome called this order. As years passed, many captured women and their children ended up in slave markets. There, buyers examined them. Teeth, limbs, strength, obedience. Families were split without hesitation. A child could be sold to one buyer, the mother to another, the father, if alive, somewhere else. No reunion, no records, no mercy. To Rome, this was economy. Not all captives resisted openly. Many survived by becoming invisible. They learned when to speak, when to lower their eyes, when to erase themselves. Survival meant obedience. Resistance meant punishment. Silence became a language. But silence was not surrender. Some women resisted in ways Rome barely noticed. Teaching forbidden stories to children, whispering native languages at night, preserving customs in secret. These acts did not overthrow Rome, but they kept identity alive quietly. Empires fear armies, but they fear memory even more. Escape was possible, but almost impossible. Captured women who tried to flee faced severe punishment, public examples, execution. Roman law encouraged informants. A single betrayal could end everything. Those who escaped often lived hunted lives, always moving, never safe. Freedom came at a terrifying cost. Over time, some captured women were absorbed into Roman society. They learned Latin. They adopted Roman dress. They followed Roman gods. From the outside, they appeared Roman. But inside, something remained broken. Their original identity was not forgotten, it was buried. Rome did not just conquer nations. It rewrote people. Some children born after conquest grew up between identities. They were too Roman for their mother's culture, too foreign for Roman elites. They served the empire that destroyed their origin. Rome expanded not only through legions, but through these silent generations, you might wonder. Why don't we hear these stories clearly? Because history was written by victors. Roman historians recorded laws, battles, emperors. They did not record tears, broken families, silent survival. The suffering of women and children was considered background noise. Modern archaeology fills the gaps. Graves without names. Foreign jewelry buried in Roman cities. Children with mixed ancestry far from their homeland. These are not coincidences. They are echoes. Rome's power did not come only from swords. It came from systems. Legal domination. Cultural erasure. Controlled reproduction. Forced assimilation. Captured women were central to this system. Not by choice, but by force. Was Rome evil? That is not the right question. The right question is this: can civilization built on legal cruelty still be called civilized? Rome gave the world roads and laws. But it also normalized suffering. Both are true. This is not just ancient history. These patterns repeat. Dehumanization after victory. Women treated as spoils. Children inheriting trauma. Empires change names. The logic remains. History does not repeat exactly, but it rhymes. When we tell history without women, we tell half a lie. When we celebrate conquest without cost, we repeat the silence. The captured women of Rome did not write books. But their lives shaped the empire in ways Rome never admitted.